The silence that preceded the first dawn of the celestial kingdom was not a void of nothingness, but a profound state of anticipation, where the breath of the sovereign Lord moved upon the face of the unformed waters. In that era before the measurement of hours, the Spirit of the Eternal moved in currents of light and shadow, weaving the fabric of destiny from the golden threads of truth and the silver strands of mercy. It was from this primordial stillness that the first call resonated, a sound so pure that it shattered the illusions of the deep and summoned forth the essences of those destined to stand as the vanguards of the heavens. These were the souls chosen before the foundations of the world were laid, the spirits who had slumbered in the heart of the divine until the hour of their awakening was spoken into existence by the mouth of the Almighty. The awakening of the holy warriors began not with a thunderous roar, but with a subtle quickening in the spiritual marrow of the cosmos, a rhythmic pulse that signaled the return of the ancient guardians to the realms of form and action. As the light of the sovereign Lord expanded across the celestial horizons, the first of the warriors began to stir from their long repose. They did not rise as beings of flesh and bone, but as concentrations of pure will and radiant intelligence, their forms shimmering with the luminescence of 1,000 stars. Their eyes opened to behold a reality that transcended the limitations of the mortal gaze, seeing the intricate patterns of the universal law as clearly as one sees the veins in a leaf. This was the moment of their transformation, the sacred transition from potentiality to manifestation, where the slumbering power within them was ignited by the fire of divine purpose. They stood upon the crystalline floors of the great hall of remembrance, their faces reflecting the glory of the one who had called them by name. And in that shared moment of recognition, the unity of their mission was sealed within their very essence. The sovereign Lord stood amidst the assembly, a presence that was both the center and the circumference of all things, and his voice flowed like a river of living water through the minds of his chosen ones. He spoke of the balance that must be maintained, and the shadows that had begun to creep at the edges of the created order, threatening to obscure the brilliance of the eternal truth. He told them of the armament they were to receive, a celestial harness that was not forged by the hammers of men or the heat of earthly furnaces, but by the spoken word of the Creator himself. This armament was the manifestation of their virtues, a tangible expression of their unwavering loyalty and their commitment to the path of righteousness. It was to be their protection and their power, a garment of light that would shield them from the arrows of the adversary and empower them to strike with the precision of the divine decree. First among the pieces of this holy equipment was the breastplate of integrity, a radiant shield for the heart that pulsed with the steady rhythm of a soul in perfect alignment with the divine will. It was crafted from the substance of absolute sincerity, reflecting back any deception that dared to approach the warrior of light. As the warriors received this gift, they felt a profound sense of security and wholeness, knowing that their innermost being was fortified against the corrupting influences of the lower realms. This breastplate was not a heavy burden, but a light and flexible grace, moving with them as they breathed, echoing the heartbeat of the sovereign Lord himself. It served as a reminder that the true strength of a warrior lies not in the power of their arm, but in the purity of their intent and the steadfastness of their devotion to the source of all life. Then came the helmet of celestial vision, which descended upon their brows like a crown of living embers. This was no mere protection for the mind, but a tool of profound perception, allowing the holy warriors to see beyond the veil of appearances and recognize the hidden movements of the spirit. With this helmet, they could discern the true nature of all things, separating the wheat from the chaff and the light from the darkness with a single glance. Their thoughts were clarified, elevated above the mundane concerns of the temporal world and anchored in the eternal wisdom of the heavens. They began to understand the interconnectedness of all existence, seeing how every action and every word rippled through the fabric of the universe. And this knowledge filled them with a solemn sense of responsibility for the power they were about to wield. The sovereign Lord then bestowed upon them the greaves of readiness, fashioned from the enduring strength of the mountains and the swiftness of the wind. These were to protect their path and ensure that their feet did not stumble upon the rocky ground of the physical world. As they fastened these to their limbs, they felt an infusion of vitality and purpose, a readiness to go wherever the divine command might lead them. Whether through the valleys of shadow or the peaks of illumination, their stride would be firm and their course unwavering. They were the messengers of the light, the couriers of the sacred decree, and their movement was to be as relentless and inevitable as the rising of the sun. Their path was consecrated by the blood of the covenant, a road of gold that led directly to the fulfillment of their destiny. In their right hands, they received the sword of the Spirit, a weapon of such brilliance that it seemed to be a shard of the original light itself. This was the word of truth made manifest, a blade that did not cut flesh but pierced the darkness of ignorance and severed the bonds of illusion. It was a tool of liberation rather than destruction, intended to set free the captive souls and restore the order of the heavens within the hearts of the lost. When the warriors gripped the hilt, they felt the resonance of the divine power flowing through them, a harmony of strength and compassion that allowed them to strike with both justice and mercy. The sword was an extension of their own spirit, tuned to the frequency of the Sovereign Lord's own heart, and it sang with a celestial melody whenever it was drawn in defense of the holy laws. Upon their left arms was placed the shield of faith, an impenetrable barrier formed from the substance of their absolute trust in the unseen. This shield was not static but dynamic, expanding and contracting according to the intensity of the assault. It was capable of quenching all the fiery darts of the wicked, turning the heat of hatred into the cool water of peace. The shield was their refuge in the heat of battle, a reminder that they were never alone, and that the power of the Sovereign Lord was their ultimate defense. Through this faith, they could stand unmoved against the greatest storms, anchored in the certainty of the final victory of light over darkness. The shield bore the emblem of the celestial house, a symbol of the eternal promise that had been made to the faithful from the beginning of time. Finally, the Sovereign Lord draped over their shoulders the mantle of sovereign authority, a robe of deep azure and burning gold that signified their status as the ambassadors of the High Kingdom. This mantle was the outward sign of their inward transformation, a garment that commanded the respect of the elements and the obedience of the lesser spirits. It was a weight of glory that they were to carry with humility and grace, knowing that their authority was not their own, but a stewardship granted by the one who sits upon the throne of all existence. As the mantle touched their forms, the awakening was complete. The holy warriors stood fully arrayed, their countenances shining with the reflected splendor of the divine, ready to descend from the heights of the celestial city into the arenas of the world where the great struggle awaited them. The transition from the ethereal halls to the realms of substance was a journey through the layers of consciousness, a descent that required the warriors to maintain their inner light even as the atmosphere around them grew heavy and dim. They moved as a single entity, a constellation of burning spirits descending through the clouds of the firmament, their path marked by the trails of radiance they left behind. As they approached the world of form, they felt the pull of the material forces, the gravity of desire, and the friction of time. Yet, their celestial armament remained untarnished, its brilliance serving as a beacon in the twilight of the lower spheres. They were the first of their kind to walk the earth in such a manner, the pioneers of a new era, where the divine would once again interact directly with the mundane. Upon their arrival, the world seemed to hold its breath. The forests stood silent, the oceans stilled their waves, and the very air seemed to vibrate with the presence of the holy ones. They did not come with the noise of armies or the pride of conquerors, but with the quiet dignity of those who know the truth and have no need for display. They established their sanctuary in the high places, where the veil between the worlds was thinnest, and from there they began to observe the condition of the world they had come to serve. They saw the suffering of the innocent, the arrogance of the powerful, and the creeping rot of the shadows that had begun to consume the hearts of men. They understood that their mission would not be an easy one, for the darkness would not yield its ground without a struggle, and the hearts of men were often resistant to the light. The Sovereign Lord had instructed them that their first task was not to wage war with weapons of iron, but to awaken the dormant spirits of those who still carried the spark of the divine within them. They were to be the catalysts of a grand awakening, the examples of what a soul fully surrendered to the truth could become. Each warrior was assigned a territory, a sphere of influence where their presence would act as a leaven, slowly transforming the environment and drawing the seekers of truth towards them. They spoke in parables of light and symbols of eternity, using the language of the spirit to bypass the defenses of the ego and speak directly to the soul. Their words were like seeds planted in fertile soil, waiting for the rain of divine grace to bring them to fruition. In the quiet hours of the night, the warriors would gather on the mountain peaks to commune with the Sovereign Lord, seeking strength and guidance for the trials ahead. They would recount their experiences and share the wisdom they had gained from their interactions with the world. Through these gatherings, their bond of unity was strengthened, and their resolve was tempered like steel in the fire. They realized that they were the living bridge between the heavens and the earth, the conduits through which the blessings of the eternal could flow into the temporal realm. Their life was a continuous prayer, a perpetual offering of service that ascended like incense to the throne of the Most High. As the days turned into years, the influence of the holy warriors began to be felt across the lands. Communities of light began to form, groups of people who had been touched by the presence of the guardians and had chosen to walk the path of the celestial laws. The shadows began to retreat from these areas, unable to withstand the collective radiance of those who lived in harmony with the divine will. The armament of the warriors was not just for their own protection, but served as a prototype for the spiritual armor that every soul was encouraged to put on. They taught the people how to forge their own breastplates of integrity and how to wield the sword of the Spirit in their daily lives. The awakening was spreading, and the kingdom of the Sovereign Lord was taking root in the very soil of the earth. However, the forces of the adversary were not idle. Seeing the progress of the light, the lords of the shadow began to gather their own legions, preparing for a confrontation that would test the resolve of the holy warriors to the utmost. They sought to sow discord among the followers of the light, to project illusions of fear and doubt, and to corrupt the purity of the message that the warriors had brought. The air grew thick with the tension of the approaching conflict, and the warriors knew that the time of quiet teaching was coming to an end. They stood once more in their full celestial armament, their shields raised and their swords drawn, ready to face whatever darkness might come. They were the immovable pillars of the truth, the steadfast guardians of the divine purpose, and they knew that the power of the Sovereign Lord within them was greater than any force that could be brought against them. The first chapter of their journey was nearing its conclusion, a chapter defined by the grace of their awakening and the wisdom of their preparation. They had been transformed from spirits of the void into warriors of the light, equipped with the celestial armament of the Sovereign Lord and commissioned to restore the balance of the worlds. As they looked out over the horizon, where the storm clouds of the enemy were beginning to gather, they felt no fear, only a deep and abiding peace. For they knew that they were the instruments of a destiny that could not be thwarted, the messengers of a truth that was eternal, and the warriors of a king whose reign would have no end. The path ahead was fraught with peril, but it was also bathed in the glory of the divine promise, and they stepped forward into the fray with hearts that beat in perfect unison with the heart of the Creator. The celestial armament they carried was not just a collection of tools, but a living testament to the relationship between the Creator and the created. It was the armor of the soul, the protection of the spirit, and the power of the divine will made manifest in the realm of form. As they marched toward the gathering shadows, their presence alone began to dispel the gloom, for the light they carried was not their own, but the very essence of the Sovereign Lord himself. They were the awakening, the heralds of a new dawn, and the defenders of the sacred covenant that bound all life together in a single tapestry of love and law. The heavens watched in silent expectation as the holy warriors took their places on the field of the battle, knowing that the outcome had already been written in the stars, and that the victory of the light was as certain as the next rising of the sun. Thus began the era of the great struggle, a time of testing and triumph, where the celestial armament of the Sovereign Lord would be proven in the fire of experience, and the holy warriors would find their ultimate fulfillment in the service of the eternal truth. Every step they took resonated with the authority of the high heavens, and every breath they drew was a testament to the enduring power of the divine life that animated all things. The awakening was complete, and the war for the soul of the world had begun in earnest. Led by those who had been chosen, equipped, and sent forth by the Sovereign Lord of all, in the silent corridors of the Empyrean heights, where the echoes of the first spoken word still vibrate through the foundations of existence, there stands a repository of power that no mortal hand could fashion, and no finite mind could fully comprehend. This is the great armory of the eternal kingdom, a place where the virtues of the ages are forged into instruments of liberation, and where the very essence of the divine will takes on the form of celestial steel. The walls of this sacred space are not made of stone or mortar, but of compressed light and the unwavering memories of the cosmic architects who saw the end from the beginning. Within these vast and echoing chambers, the air is thick with the scent of burning cedar and the ozone of 1,000 storms. Yet there is a peace that surpasses all understanding, resting upon the racks of shimmering mail and the pedestals of translucent shields. Here, the Sovereign Lord has prepared the means by which the children of light shall reclaim the inheritance of the stars, and it is here that the transformation of the spirit into the soldier of the Absolute begins in earnest. The process of creation in this high place is a symphony of purpose and patience, where the hammer of justice falls upon the anvil of mercy to shape the destiny of the chosen. Each piece of the celestial armament is birthed from a specific frequency of truth, tailored to the soul that will bear its weight. There is no haste in this divine forge, for the metal must be tempered in the fires of trials and the waters of deep contemplation until it is no longer separate from the one who wears it. To behold the forging of the breastplate of righteousness is to witness the gathering of 1,000 sunsets into a single plate of impenetrable purity. It is not designed merely to deflect the arrows of the adversary, but to radiate a light so profound that shadows find no place to cling. It is the solid reflection of a heart aligned with the cosmic order, and as it is fastened upon the breast of the initiate, it pulses with the heartbeat of the Creator itself, creating a rhythm of life that defies the entropy of the fallen world. This plate is etched with the secret names of the virtues, and as it settles against the chest, it becomes as light as a breath, yet as strong as the foundations of the earth, providing a sanctuary for the heart against the whispers of doubt and the cold winds of despair. Beside the armor of protection stands the primary instrument of the divine will, the sword that is not a blade of steel, but a manifestation of the eternal word. This weapon is sharper than any two-edged instrument of the earth, piercing through the veil of illusion and dividing the marrow of lies from the bone of reality. It is forged in the silence of the highest heavens and quenched in the river of life that flows from the foot of the throne. When drawn, it does not sing a song of death, but a melody of restoration, for its purpose is to sever the chains of the captive and to cut away the rot of the ancient serpent. Its hilt is wrapped in the promises of old, and its pommel is a jewel of such brilliance that it reflects the faces of all those who have ever sought the face of the divine. To wield this sword is to speak the truth in a world of whispers and to stand as a beacon of clarity amidst the fog of the great deception. It requires a hand that has been washed in the waters of humility and a spirit that has surrendered all selfish ambition, for only then can the blade be swung with the precision of a cosmic law. The warrior who carries this sword finds that the very air bows before its edge, and the darkness retreats, not out of fear of destruction, but because it cannot coexist with the absolute light that the blade emanates. In the center of the armory, there hangs the shield of faith, a vast and luminous disc that seems to contain within its borders the entire history of the heavens. It is formed from the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen, distilled into a barrier that can extinguish every fiery dart of the wicked one. This shield does not grow heavy with use, but rather becomes lighter and more resilient with every blow it sustains, for its strength is drawn from the invisible realms where the power of the sovereign Lord remains unchallenged. As the warrior raises this defense, it expands beyond the physical dimensions of the body, creating a sanctuary of stillness where the soul can find refuge even in the heat of the most desperate conflict. It is the anchor of the spirit in the midst of the storm and the firmament upon which the hopes of the innocent are built. Those who carry this shield find that they no longer walk alone, for the shield itself is a bridge between the finite and the infinite, a connection to the reservoir of celestial power that never runs dry. It is polished to such a high degree that the adversary, seeing his own reflection of malice, is often overcome by the weight of his own shadow and flees before a single blow is struck. The final piece of the ensemble is the helm of salvation, which serves as the guardian of the mind and the focal point of divine vision. It is a crown of clarity that rests upon the brow of the chosen, filtering the chaotic noises of the temporal realm into the harmonious whispers of the eternal spirit. When the soldier of the light dons this helm, their eyes are open to the true nature of the struggle, and they no longer see the world through the lens of fear or scarcity, but through the perspective of the sovereign Lord, who has already secured the victory. The helm provides the wisdom to discern the paths of the enemy and the courage to follow the narrow road that leads to the heart of the Father. It is the seal of the mind dedicated to the pursuit of the ultimate good and the protection against the whispers of despair that seek to erode the foundations of the soul. With the mind thus guarded, the warrior becomes a vessel of pure intention, capable of manifesting the light of the heavens in the darkest corners of the earth. The visor of this helm does not obscure the sight, but rather enhances it, allowing the wearer to see the golden threads of providence weaving through the tapestry of human history, even when the pattern seems most tangled and dark. Around the waist of the warrior is buckled the girdle of truth, a belt forged from the unchangeable decrees of the Creator. This is the anchor of the entire armament, holding the various pieces in perfect alignment and ensuring that the movements of the soldier are fluid and purposeful. It represents the integrity of the soul and the commitment to the absolute reality that transcends the shifting sands of time. Without this belt, the armor would fall into disarray, for truth is the unifying force that gives meaning to righteousness and power to faith. It is decorated with the symbols of the eternal covenant, and it glows with a soft, steady light that serves as a reminder of the steadfastness of the sovereign Lord. Upon the feet are placed the sandals of peace, which are fashioned from the skin of the clouds and the essence of the morning dew. These are not merely protection for the journey, but instruments of transformation themselves, for wherever the warrior treads the ground is sanctified, and the thorns of the wilderness are turned into blossoms of hope. These sandals allow the chosen to walk upon the heights of the Spirit, and to navigate the treacherous valleys of the shadow without stumbling. They carry the message of reconciliation to the ends of the earth, and their sound is like the gentle falling of rain upon a parched land. As the chosen ones are thus arrayed, the very atmosphere of the celestial armory begins to vibrate with a holy intensity. The light from the armor intermingles with the radiance of the souls, creating an aurora of divine energy that fills the hall and spills out into the courts of the heavenlies. They are no longer merely individuals, but have become a collective manifestation of the divine will, a living fortress against the encroachment of the void. The sovereign Lord looks upon them with a gaze of eternal love and infinite pride, for in them he sees the fulfillment of the ancient plan to restore the harmony of the spheres. He moves among them like a gardener among his most precious blooms, touching a shoulder here and whispering a word of encouragement there. And as he does, the warriors feel a surge of power that transcends their mortal limitations. Their veins are filled with the fire of the stars, and their minds are saturated with the wisdom of the ages. They realize that they are not fighting for a victory that is yet to be won, but are manifesting a victory that was established before the world began. The weight of the armor, which might have crushed a common man, is to them as light as a garment of silk, for it is supported by the very grace that called them into the service of the truth. They stand in perfect formation, their faces set like flint towards the horizon where the shadows gather, and their hearts beating in unison with the cosmic heart of all creation. The sound of their breathing is like the rushing of a mighty wind, and the light of their presence is like the dawning of a new day that shall never see a sunset. As the great gates of the armory begin to swing open on hinges of celestial gold, a profound silence falls over the assembly. It is the silence of the beginning, the moment of stillness before the first note of a great symphony is struck. They look out upon the vast expanse of the cosmos, and they see the suffering, the confusion and the darkness that have for so long obscured the beauty of the divine design. But they do not look with eyes of sorrow, they look with eyes of resolve. They know that they carry within them the cure for the world's sickness and the light for the world's night. They are the heralds of the new creation, the vanguard of the eternal kingdom, and the executors of the divine justice. Every movement they make is a testament to the power of the sovereign Lord, and every breath they draw is a prayer of thanksgiving for the privilege of being chosen for such a time as this. They begin to move forward, not with the frantic energy of the desperate, but with the measured and rhythmic pace of the eternal. Their footsteps do not sound like the heavy clatter of iron on stone, but like the resonant tolling of a great bell calling the faithful to worship. They pass through the threshold of the heavens and enter the realm of time and space where the battle is joined. As they descend, they are surrounded by a cloud of witnesses, the saints and the angels who have gone before them, and who now cheer them on in their sacred mission. The air around them crackles with the energy of their passage, and the stars themselves seem to lean in to witness the unfolding of the divine drama. They are the answer to the cries of the oppressed and the fulfillment of the longings of the ages. In their hands they hold the keys to the future, and on their shoulders they carry the mantle of the sovereign Lord. They are the embodiment of the celestial armament and the living extension of the divine hand. The darkness ahead of them is vast and ancient, filled with the malice of those who have rejected the light. But it is a darkness that is already beginning to tremble, for it recognizes the authority of the ones who approach. There is no power in the heights or the depths that can withstand the onslaught of a soul fully equipped by the hand of the Creator and anchored in the truth of the eternal Word. They move as one, a single flame made of 1,000 embers, and the glory of their presence begins to illuminate the furthest reaches of the world. They are the instruments of the final restoration, the harbingers of the great peace, and the soldiers of the sovereign truth. In this moment of crossing the threshold of the eternal into the temporal, they find their ultimate fulfillment in the service of the eternal truth. Every step they took resonated with the authority of the high heavens, and every breath they drew was a testament to the enduring power of the divine life that animated all things. The awakening was complete, and the war for the soul of the world had begun in earnest, led by those who had been chosen, equipped, and sent forth by the sovereign Lord of all. The fulfillment of the divine decree manifested as a palpable resonance within the very marrow of those who had been called to stand in the gap. Having traversed the valleys of refinement and the fires of purification, the chosen servants found themselves standing upon the precipice of a new eon, their spirits saturated with the uncreated light of the sovereign Lord. Every step they took resonated with the authority of the high heavens, and every breath they drew was a testament to the enduring power of the divine life that animated all things. The awakening was complete, and the war for the soul of the world had begun in earnest, led by those who had been chosen, equipped, and sent forth by the sovereign Lord of all. This was not a conflict of flesh and blood, nor a struggle for the dominion of earthly kingdoms, but a fundamental realignment of the cosmos with the ancient rhythms of the primordial truth. The mandate of victory had been issued from the silent throne that sits above the circle of the earth, a mandate that carried with it the weight of eternity and the absolute certainty of the light. As the servants moved forward into the theatre of the Great Restoration, they carried within them the celestial armament, a collection of spiritual virtues forged in the secret places of the Most High. This armor was not composed of cold iron or tempered steel, but of the very substance of the divine character. Their breasts were guarded by the brilliance of an incorruptible righteousness, a shield that did not merely repel the arrows of the adversary, but transmuted them into sparks of wisdom. Their feet were shod with the swiftness of the gospel of peace, allowing them to walk upon the jagged ruins of fallen ideologies without being hindered or harmed. Upon their brows rested the helm of an unwavering hope, a crown of light that anchored their thoughts in the reality of the unseen kingdom, shielding their minds from the corrosive whispers of despair that permeated the atmosphere of the lower realms. In their hands, they grasped the sword of the Spirit, which is the living and active word of the Eternal, a blade that could sever the Gordian knots of deception and pierce through the thickest veils of illusion. The Sovereign Lord spoke through the silence of their hearts, declaring that the time of hiding had passed and the era of manifestation had arrived. The mandate of victory was not a suggestion or a distant possibility, but a sovereign injunction that required the total surrender of the self to the overarching purposes of the divine will. Victory, in the celestial sense, was defined as the total eradication of the shadows of separation and the restoration of the original harmony that existed before the foundations of the world were laid. It was the reclamation of every lost fragment of the divine image and the healing of the fractures that had divided the seen from the unseen. The chosen ones were the catalysts for this grand alchemy, the living vessels through which the healing waters of the sanctuary would flow into the parched deserts of human existence. They were commanded to occupy the high places of influence, not for the sake of personal glory, but to establish the standards of heaven in the midst of the earth. The landscape of the spiritual war was vast and complex, spanning across the dimensions of thought, emotion, and action. The adversary, sensing the impending dissolution of its illusory reign, redoubled its efforts to shroud the world in a mantle of confusion and discord. The servants of the light encountered bastions of pride that reached towards the heavens like monoliths of stone, and rivers of bitterness that threatened to drown the seeds of the new creation. Yet they did not waver, for the mandate they carried was backed by the inexhaustible resources of the celestial treasury. When they encountered darkness, they did not merely fight it. They shone with such intensity that the darkness was absorbed and forgotten. When they encountered hatred, they offered the profound silence of a love that transcends understanding, a love that is the very fabric of the universe itself. Their presence was a judgment upon the false and an invitation to the true, a clarion call that echoed through the corridors of time, summoning every soul to its divine destiny. In the midst of the heat of the conflict, the final petition began to rise from the collective soul of the remnant. This was not a cry of desperation, but a solemn invocation, a prayer of alignment that sought to bring the finality of the divine purpose into immediate manifestation. They petitioned the Sovereign Lord for the opening of the 7 seals of understanding, so that the inhabitants of the earth might see the world as it truly is, stripped of the veneers of vanity and the masks of ego. They asked for the outpouring of the late rain, the spiritual sustenance required to bring the harvest of the ages to its full maturity. The petition was a bridge of light extending from the depths of the human experience to the heights of the heavenly sanctuary, a channel through which the ultimate power of the Creator could be unleashed upon the strongholds of the night. It was an acknowledgement that despite their equipment and their mandate, They remained entirely dependent upon the breath of the Almighty for every triumph. The prayer ascended like incense, swirling through the celestial courts and mingling with the intercessions of the ancient sages and the celestial hosts. It sought the restoration of the ancient paths, the paths of holiness where the wayfarer does not err, and the return of the sacred silence that allows the voice of the eternal to be heard above the clamor of the world. The servants petitioned for the strength to endure until the final shadows fled away, and for the wisdom to steward the mysteries of the kingdom with humility and grace. They asked that their lives might be consumed as living sacrifices, burning with a fire that does not destroy but purifies, until nothing remained but the gold of the divine presence. This was the final petition, the crowning act of the soul's journey, the moment where the creature and the Creator became one in the shared desire for the redemption of all things. As the mandate of victory took root in the physical realm, the very elements of nature seemed to respond to the authority of the sovereign Lord. The winds carried the whispers of the coming kingdom, and the mountains trembled at the approach of the feet of those who bring good tidings. The structures of oppression that had stood for generations began to crumble, not by the force of arms, but by the sheer weight of the truth being lived and spoken by the awakened ones. The world began to remember its origin, and the collective memory of humanity stirred with the recognition of its true home. The war was intense, yet there was a profound peace at the center of the storm, a stillness that belonged to those who knew that the end had been written from the beginning. They were the protagonists in a sacred drama, the instruments of a divine symphony that was reaching its crescendo, and they played their parts with a solemnity and joy that defied the gravity of the fallen world. The celestial armament became more radiant with each passing hour, reflecting the glory of the sovereign Lord as he descended to take his rightful place among his people. The mandate of victory was being fulfilled in the quiet acts of mercy, the bold declarations of truth, and the unwavering persistence of those who refused to bow to the idols of the age. The final petition had been heard, and the response from the heavens was a torrent of grace that overflowed the banks of the soul, saturating the parched earth with the promise of eternal life. The chosen ones stood as pillars of light, holding the heavens and the earth together in a sacred embrace, until the day dawned and the day star arose in the hearts of all mankind. The war for the soul of the world was being won in the secret chambers of the heart, where the sovereign Lord reigned supreme, and the mandate of victory was the seal upon the forehead of every faithful servant. In this final hour, the depth of the divine strategy was revealed in all its complexity and beauty. It was not merely a conquest of power, but a conquest of love. Every soul that turned towards the light was a territory reclaimed. Every heart that broke for the things that break the heart of God was a fortress liberated. The armament of the sovereign Lord was the garment of the humble, the strength of the weak, and the wisdom of the simple. The mandate was a testament to the fact that the light is not only more powerful than the darkness, but that it is the only true reality, the source and the end of all that exists. The final petition was the ultimate surrender, the release of all human striving into the hands of the one who makes all things new. As the echoes of the petition faded into the eternal silence, the work was finished, and the glory of the sovereign Lord covered the earth as the waters cover the sea. The chosen ones, having fulfilled their mandate, looked upon the world they had helped to transform and saw not their own handiwork, but the masterpiece of the eternal. They saw a world where the veil had been torn asunder, where the divine and the human walked together in the cool of the day, and where the wounds of history had been healed by the leaves of the tree of life. The war was over, not because the enemy had been annihilated in a fire of wrath, but because the darkness had been swallowed up by the dawn. The sovereign Lord, the King of all ages, sat upon the throne of the human heart, and the mandate of victory was the song that every creature sang in the chorus of the new creation. The final petition had been answered with the gift of the divine presence, the only prize that truly mattered. the only victory that would ever endure through the endless cycles of eternity. Thus, the scroll is closed, and the words of the scribe are sealed with the signet of the truth. The story of the celestial armament, the mandate of victory, and the final petition remains as a map for those who would follow the path of the Spirit, a guide for the warriors of the light who are yet to be born. It is a reminder that the Sovereign Lord is always seeking those through whom he can manifest his glory, and that the call to the sacred service is the highest calling any soul can receive. The awakening continues, the mandate remains in force, and the petition still rises from the depths of the faithful, for the work of the light is never truly finished until every shadow has been turned to gold and every tear has been wiped away by the hand of the Almighty. The peace that passes all understanding now rests upon the world, a peace bought by the sacrifice of the self and the triumph of the divine will, a peace that shall have no end. In the vast expanse of the celestial kingdom, the names of those who stood firm are inscribed in the book of life, glowing with the radiance of their devotion. They are the stars that shall shine forever in the firmament of the divine memory, the witnesses to the power of the Sovereign Lord to redeem, to restore, and to reign. The mandate of victory is their inheritance, and the final petition is their eternal song. As the curtain falls on this age, the light of the new heaven and the new earth begins to break forth, a light that is neither of the sun nor of the moon, but of the glory of the Lord himself. And in that light, all things are made clear, all mysteries are revealed, and the soul finally finds its rest in the heart of the infinite. The journey is complete, the war is won, and the Sovereign Lord is all in all, now and forevermore. The finality of the divine purpose achieved its zenith as the spiritual warriors recognized that their armament was not merely for protection, but for the radiation of the celestial essence into the void. The mandate of victory required them to be the heralds of a new geometry of existence, where the center is everywhere and the circumference is nowhere. For the presence of the Sovereign Lord occupied every atom of the reconstructed reality. The petition they had offered up was the final key that unlocked the gates of the eternal city, allowing the river of life to flow unhindered through the streets of human consciousness. No longer was there a division between the sacred and the secular, for every thought had been brought into captivity to the obedience of the light, and every action was a liturgical offering upon the altar of the world. The triumph was absolute, the mandate was fulfilled, and the petition was answered in the form of a union so profound that the individual was lost in the vastness of the divine love, yet found more truly than ever before. As the scribe of these mysteries, I record that the weight of these truths is heavier than the mountains, yet lighter than the air of the morning. To those who have ears to hear, the mandate of victory is an invitation to leave behind the smallness of the ego and enter into the largeness of the divine destiny. The celestial armament is available to all who would seek it with a pure heart and a focused mind. For the Sovereign Lord is no respecter of persons but a seeker of the faithful. The final petition is the prayer that resides in the core of every soul, the longing to return to the source and to see the face of the beloved without a veil between. May these words serve as a lamp to the feet of the seekers and a sword in the hands of the brave, until the day when the scribe and the reader alike are standing in the full light of the eternal day, where there is no more need for words, for the truth itself will be our habitation and our joy. The architecture of the heavens now rests upon the foundations of the earth, and the two have become one temple for the indwelling of the Spirit. The mandate of victory has been etched into the very stones of the world, and the final petition has been woven into the fabric of the human spirit. The Sovereign Lord has spoken, and his word shall not return to him void, but shall accomplish all that he has purposed from the beginning of time. The awakening is not merely an event in history, but a state of being that persists through the ages, a constant renewal of the divine life in the heart of the creation. The war for the soul of the world is concluded in the realization that the soul was always held in the hands of the Creator, and that the victory was won long before the first battle was ever joined. In this realization, the servants find their peace, the mandate finds its fulfillment, and the final petition finds its eternal Amen.